Vice President Mike Pence and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo have arrived in Turkey. The goal, to pressure Turkey to stop attacking our Kurdish allies in Syria after President Trump gave President Recep Tayyip Erdogan the go-ahead to invade.
Back in Washington, the president's message runs counter to Pompeo and Pence's efforts. He told reporters the U.S. has no stake in defending Kurdish fighters who fought alongside U.S. forces against ISIS. He's also said that the Kurds are, quote, no angels.
CBS News State Department and Foreign Affairs reporter Christina Ruffini joins us now with more from Washington. All right, so Ruffini, what are the Vice President and the Secretary of State hoping to accomplish today, given that the Turkish President Erdogan has said that he has no intention of holding back?
They're hoping to somehow convince him to change course, and it's a tall order. Turkish officials beyond the president have said they're not leaving until they've eliminated this threat, or what they say is a threat, from along their border. The U.S. has said it's not going to take military action against Turkey, which is a NATO ally, so they're going to have to try to talk them down. But the Turks have said the only way the U.S. can get them to stop this offensive is to declare the SDF and YPG, which are those Kurdish groups that fought with the U.S. to help eliminate ISIS. The Turks want the U.S. to declare them terrorist organizations, which is how they view them, and join them in this fight to bring it to a more rapid conclusion. But what we've seen, and it's only been a week or so since the exercise started, is a rapid destabilization of a region that had until now been a rare spot of calm and relative peace in Syria's bloody 8-year civil war.
So, you know, the president said that the U.S. is not going to involve itself in a war between Turkey and Syria. And so the real question is, why are you sending the Vice President and your Secretary of State to Turkey then?
It's a tough question. You know, what we've heard from State Department officials when they moved these soldiers was, you know, it was 2 border garrisons, about 40 to 50 individuals, and what they didn't think Turkey would conduct this operation without the U.S. They said it has been cleared from the beginning that this is what Turkey always wanted to do. It's made no secret about that. And it was one of the reasons the safe zone agreement was set up with the Turks back in December of last year, was trying to allay Turkish concerns about these Kurdish groups close to their border. However, the U.S. says that, officials have basically admitted that they played chicken and lost, because the Turks did end up going in without American support and have been tearing through northeast Syria at a brisk pace. We've seen video of abandoned military bases, and overnight the U.S. military bombed one of its own facilities that it evacuated in order to destroy a munitions cache it didn't have time to transport or destroy in the moment, because they were getting out of there so quickly. And as you know, it's easier to stop the ball before it starts rolling. Now that all this is happening and troops are on the ground, now that the Kurds and the Americans have fallen back and abandoned these outposts, it's going to be very difficult, even on the rare chance the Turks do somehow agree to a ceasefire, to get this region back to normal.
And let's remind everyone, too, that the Kurds have now, you know, reached out to the Syrian government and the Russians,
and
who
Iran.
are there.
And Iran.
Right. So now there are, you know, even more factors, more elements in that very, very sort of sensitive area.
Right. And even if we say, you know, even if we, America, says to the Kurds, you know, it's cool, we've worked out something with the Turks, you guys can go back now. In their eyes, the Americans have already betrayed them. So there's also a trust loss, and they have no reason to trust us again. And they've already made side deals with Assad, the Syrian leader, and with the Russians.
You know, Christina, the president has threatened to, quote, destroy the Turkish economy. Sanctions are being levied against the Turks. That hasn't brought them to the negotiating table. It's not even clear that the United States has the ability to destroy the Turkish economy. We're not their largest trading partner. So if the sanctions aren't going to get this done, and, you know, a hit on their economy isn't going to change Erdogan's mind, it just seems remarkable to think that Pompeo and Vice President Mike Pence will be able to get him to stop, unless, as you point out, Christina, the Turkish president receives something in return, in which case it's still, you know, it ends the bloodshed, but we come off weaker for it.
The only thing that's still out there that and this is me speculating, that is still out there that could possibly be on the table is the F-35 program. If you remember, Turkey was kicked out of the F-35 program because they bought this Russian missile system. The U.S. has said you can't have both. Turkey has said we'd love to have both. We'd like to talk to you about this. The U.S. has said this is a non-starter. It's actually very similar to the intractable positions these two countries are in about this movement in northern Syria. The only thing I could think that could possibly talk Erdogan down from this is to say, okay, we will work with you on the F-35, get you back in the program, allow you to have this Russian missile system, and we'll work that out. However, the optics of that, as you said, Vlad, are not good for American power in the Middle East. This means the U.S. would have told its ally not to do something the ally did anyway, and then told the ally, okay, you absolutely cannot have this jet, and then changed its mind on that and given it back to say, please stop doing the thing we asked you not to do in the first place. It's a real no-win situation, and it's hard to see, even with all this power. I mean, there are 3 U.S. military jets that went over with American officials both 2 days ago and last night to try to get this settled. It is a full court press, but they've got their work cut out for them.
So, this is, Christina, before we let you go, you know, we've been talking all morning long about the passing of Congressman Elijah Cummings. You spoke with him when you covered the Baltimore riots, the anti-police riots that happened in Baltimore over several days. I remember seeing some of his interviews, and he was truly emotional about what was happening in his city. Can you tell us more about your interaction with him?
Yeah, we were there from day one, and we were there every night at what we called CBS Square, which was that building everybody remembers that was on fire, and the police front lines and the rioters. And I just remember on one particularly bad, violent night, you know, Representative Cummings came out, and there were gang members with their faces covered, screaming at reporters, screaming at the police. And as soon as he walked into the crowd, even the most vehement, self-promoting gangbanger would fall silent and would listen to him. I mean, he had the kind of respect that you just don't get from people who don't respect a lot of things, especially in that moment. And I remember one particular incident where there was a, let's say, overzealous, we'll call him a reporter, I would disagree with that, basically trying to bait one of these young guys into some sort of confrontation. You could tell he wanted something on camera. And I remember Elijah Cummings just walking between them and looking at the reporter and saying, "Stop that. Don't." Didn't yell, just this very, very calm voice. And it just diffused the entire situation because he had this voice with such authority and such gravitas, and you could tell he cared so much about the issue and what was happening to his city that everybody listened to him, at least in the moment.
He is somebody that I think if more politicians embodied the characteristics and the traits as you just described them, Christina, we would probably get a lot more done in our nation's capital. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you both.